My next guest has described himself as a pockmarked streak of pelican shit. Not the colossal ego you usually associate with rock stars, but then again, he's never been one to do or say what's expected of him. In a business filled with phony rebels and wannabe artistes, he's the real thing. Please welcome UMI frontman Tim Rogers. Welcome, sir. Thank you. Excellent jacket.
Yes, the world's energy problems could be saved a great deal of trauma with this just very jacket.
Now, might I ask where it came from?
It came from a store in Cleveland, Ohio. I've travelled.
Only to Cleveland, Ohio?
It's a store at the bottom of my favourite club anywhere in the world, actually.
Well, the minute you saw that jacket, did you know that's for me?
I was blinded.
Well, I can see that, yes.
I'd sort of tend to mix it up in between wanting to be Chauncey Gardner and, you know, just going through life unnoticed, which is difficult when you're 6'3" and have a nose like this. And then growing up and thinking that everyone in a rock band came from, well, frankly, from space. So when I see any clothes that look like they might fit me and have a bit of glimmer to them, I'm like, ooh, I'll have a bit of that.
Speaking of rock bands from space, when you were a kid, I think when you were 9, you went to see Kiss in concert.
I didn't get to see Kiss. No, this is which I brought up with Gene Simmons when I met him. Because I met Gene in a dressing room at a H.G. and Roy show, one of their shows, and all the time while he was chatting to me, Andy, our manager and bass player, set it up. He was like, "Oh, Tim, come and get your makeup now." And I said, No. He said, "No, come and get your makeup now." And I walked in and there's Gene, you know, who took up a lot of my childhood, and introduced myself to him, and he was lovely. UMI, what does UMI mean? And I was talking about that, and he was telling me how hellish it was flying first class from Los Angeles to Sydney. And, I couldn't really contribute to that conversation, but all the time while he was talking to me, he was stroking the hair of the makeup assistant who was there on work experience. She was maybe about 17. I didn't think it was a filial kind of thing, or it seemed to be a little. Anyway, it was a lovely chat apart from that element of it. But I wrote a song for him. It was called Letter to Gene, and it was talking about that I spent so much of my childhood looking up to you, and I don't know whether you're in it for the music, and that.
That's right. You said, is it all about the money? Yeah,
you come across as someone being more about the finances, and he wrote in an Australian, I think in a heavy metal mag, they asked him of his top 5 records of the year, and he put Tim Rogers, this record that I wrote, including that song. But in his review of it, he said, "Tim, if you have a problem with any of the money I'm making, any of the money that you make on tour, you can send it to this address, Gene Simmons, P.O. Box," which was beautiful.
In that song, Letter to Gene, you talked about, you went from being the sweet kid playing football games to a child of the damned. You sold your soul. What happened in there?
Well, up until the time I was about 11, it was just all about football and cricket. And my dad was a really great footballer and cricketer, and that was just, the weekends were just taken up by that. And when I started getting into rock bands, I got a little more interested in the darker elements of life.
I'm curious. What is the dark?
I don't know whether it was the darkness. It just seemed very exotic, and it wasn't all just that what you can chuck up your nose, or that you could get girls or anything. It seemed to involve a lot of questionable literature and clothes, and there was the whole package. That's why when people say, "Why did you get into music?" and you say, "Well, it's just because of the music, man." It's not. It's the whole thing, you know. It's fascinating and a little bit scary, because as a kid, I did think that if you went on stage, you had to wear a cape, or or a top hat, or perform magic.
For those that are unfamiliar with UMI, I'm going to show, but this is from the mid-90s. This is a clip for a song called Trike.
Ride to the hills at night, watch the lights go down and your neighbors fight. I'm the boy to keep you up at night.
What happened? There was a nice looking kid.
Clean cut young man.
Well, we call that the Terry Sullivan. The Sullivans were my favourite show as a kid, and at times when I feel like I've you know when I think I've been drinking too much, when I go and get a haircut like that, it's like, yeah, I'm going to straighten myself out and go and get a Terry Sullivan.
You needed a grey cardigan as well.
I've got so many cardigans and vests, and don't ask me about Lorraine Bailey. Now that you ask.
Yeah. I'm interested in, because I think in the last 16 years you've brought out 13 albums with the band and with others and by yourself. So you've been quite prolific. Is it intoxicating or infuriating to have that sense of music in you all the time?
I think it's infuriating for anybody who's in your company. But I'm you possibly can tell, I don't sleep a lot, and a bit of an insomniac, and a chronic walker. And that motion of walking, things just come, and that's how I get all the lyrics from, for songs, You Are My Songs Are My Own Songs, or just because I walk a lot to try and walk off anxiety or tension and things like that.
I know you're writing some articles about the do's and don'ts of being in a rock and roll band. I don't know if they're tongue-in-cheek or not, but what are the do's and don'ts?
Now, I mean, there's video games out called Rockstar, and, you know, the competitions from mobile phone companies, live like a rock star, and just, it's a cliche, dumb thing when to be a rock and roll performer should necessitate that you're at least kind of interesting and have a joie de vivre, and also something to add, not just chuck on some leather trousers and wreck a hotel room. I used to clean out Canberra Theatre myself as a university student. So if you wreck a hotel room, you're just a dick. I've done it, I've been there, but I'll probably be cleaning rooms next year, so that's when I'll do my penance again. I think you should respect the almost middle-aged, because I'm 39.
Yes.
And if you thought being in a rock band was fun when you're 18, it's freaking hilarious when you're 38.
You used to travel with B Suburban, Tex Perkins, and you said that they taught you how to live your life as an artist without any apologies. What does that mean?
Well, I think before when I said that I thought rock bands came from space, that when the band started in about the early 90s, that the greatest insult that someone could throw at you was, oh, you're such a rock star. That was supposed to really hurt. And then going on tour with those guys, and they were really just a lot of silly fun, and it was like, seemed to live, oh, right, you can live your life like that and throw yourself into it.
You got to support the Stones and also the Who, amongst others. What did you want to learn from them when you were observing them up close?
My favourite moment was with there's a Stones and a Who one. Where the Stones one was, there was a time allotted when we were to meet them. And after watching from a distance Mick working the backstage room, and he was like a politician. I know it's been said about Mick before, but he was just a pro. And then, but we were chaperoned into this room and nervously kind of, and said, well, you know, the Stones will come by and we'll hang out for a little while. When they sort of burst through the door, particularly Keith, it was like he knew that he had to be Keith for us. It was like his little gift to us was to burst through the, hey, my boys, yeah, all right, yeah, man, yeah. And he must have known how much that would mean to us, rather than coming in and, yeah, hello, how are you? Keith Richards, yeah, bugger off kind of thing. Yeah. That he really was that generous that he could do that for us.
And were you flattered that he was putting on Keith Richards for you?
Yeah. The Who one was just like that as well, that after we played the show and we were going to meet up with them that night, and Davey and I were a little bit overawed. I mean, the Pete Townsend thing looms pretty heavy. I mean, I've never actually listened to them. I don't know what they do at all. And so Davey and I went for a little bit of Dutch courage across the road, and when we came back, Rusty seemed to have his arm against the wall, and Pete Townsend was just chatting to him, and they were talking about beat groups of the 60s that we both loved. And Pete just swung around, hey, you're the You Are My guy. And yeah, wow, my son really flipping loves your band.
Wow.
Like, thanks, Pete Townsend, the guy I've been watching since I was 10. And it was another case that the bigger bands that you tour with, they're wonderful and generous. And the Oasis guys and Soundgarden and all those bands, they're wonderful. And it's the middling bands who are total bitches. Rock bands are the biggest, bitchingest, whiningest group of drop punts you could ever... And it tends to be, if they're not
Yeah.
There, down there. I mean, ourselves included, we're bitches. Oh, did you see what he's wearing?
Your first trip overseas, when you were in America, your first big tour, you had a big standoff with the record company who wanted to use the Song Berlin Chair for a Budweiser ad. Can you talk us through the standoff?
Yeah, it wasn't our first time over there, but it was our first time after we'd been signed up by Warner Brothers. So I think it was for a couple of days, that whether to use the Song Berlin Chair as on this Budweiser commercial, because we were, once again, from the time that we started playing, thinking you just can't do that kind of thing, and it's selling out and commercialism, and there was a lot of toing and froing, and there was no water torture involved. But I think at a certain point they went, you're bugger you, we'll give it to this prettier band, and they gave it to someone else, I believe. But I remember it being a really, there were tears, and now it seems that giving the song to a company and to advertise something, it's like, oh yeah, well it'll get us this and get us that, and there's no conjecture about it. And
I assume there was a lot of money on the table.
Oh, it wasn't an upfront amount. It was an opportunity to be played on 6 million American radio stations. If it was a cash deal, oh yeah, we would have done it.
You must have been through this a million times, because you had so much critical success, and you had 3 #1 albums in a row, which was debuting at #1, which is, I think, still a record. Why did you never make it commercially?
Have you heard me sing?
Because you've said that if you really sat down and nutted it out, you could write a hit song.
Well, Paul Kelly said this at an awards night. He said, I always get asked about how do you write a hit song. If I knew how to write one, I would have done it a million times, You don't deliberately set out to write things that aren't commercial. I would love to, for the band in particular, to have a stonking, massive, great hit and lose it all in a blizzard of blow within a month. And that's a great way to go out, Good night, we're gone,
You were talking about Jet once, and you said, I don't think we could have handled that success then, and I don't think we could handle it now. What do you think would have happened if you'd had big commercial success?
You kind of just get flustered, and if you get people throw a lot of drugs at you and a lot of drink, you just kind of get wound down, and you start taking your friendships for granted. And we felt all that happening, even, as I said, when we were playing to a dozen people, and seeing a band like Jet and those guys and how they've handled it. So I think, well, that's, kudos to them. As, I'm not jealous at all, but we would have just not had that maturity at the time. I know I wasn't mature until, probably about a week ago.
Your mum, Maureen, said, when you bring out an album, she said to you, darling, should I be scared? What is it she's concerned about? What she'll find out or what you'll do?
No, well, using family members for songs is, I should have learned about that.
Yeah.
I've tried to ease up on using family members or friends in songs, because it seemed like a good idea at the time, but then people get to hear them, and I kind of forget that when you're writing songs. And I've probably outed myself or all these other things in songs, and they sound great in the bedroom, and oh man, it works with the D7, fantastic, but then you record them, it's all great, yeah, great record, and then it's coming out, what? And then people actually get to hear it, and sorry mum, sorry dad, sorry Jamie, sorry Gab, the whole family have to ring up and apologise.
I want to throw one of your lyrics at you, because you're a fantastic lyricist.
Thank you.
And this is...
Can you tell us a few more people?
I'm about to. This is... I may not get this exactly right, but it's the gist of it. My sweet baby dumpling, what have I put you through? Dusting for prints of Who Cursed Me Blue, which you wrote to your daughter Ruby.
Yeah. The old, depression and anxiety thing comes up a lot in songs, because playing in a rock band is what cured it, as far as I'm concerned. Which is the only reason I talk about it, is because I went through it, I got over it for the most part. And I think it's important for, the incidences of heavy anxiety attacks and schizophrenic episodes in teenage males it's right there, and it's so prevalent. And if you add into the mix, chucking cheap pills down your throat and smoking hydroponic pot, it's not going to help, And what helped me as a kid was my dad and other people saying, those episodes you're going through, I've been through that myself.
Can we explain those? Because this is, you were studying at ANU.
Yep.
And you had the full episode, is that right? What happened?
Yeah, just heavy kind of anxiety attacks and really bad paranoid attacks, and I was running myself pretty ragged. I was working to put myself through university and doing a degree I shouldn't have, and so it just exacerbated, very heavy episodes where you're just totally disassociated from anything, and you're just a total ball of panic, and so that went on for years, and was diagnosed. And when the diagnosis, when you hear that word schizophrenia, it's just, you're just in total panic. Oh,
that's
shit.
what you were told?
Yeah, it was put that you were having schizophrenic episodes, and that what you're telling me is that, where the warning signs are going up, that if you're seeing signs that you think are actually written for you and they're warning you of what's going to happen, that you're going to have another episode because you saw a sign and that's attributed to you, then yeah, it was getting pretty heavy, and had to quit university a couple of times and go and live back with Mum, and then my brother and my best friend Nick said, can you join our band? And I did, and the only way to play shows was to get out of the house, and that playing shows was the way that I had to get myself together to do the shows. And
that must have been difficult to go out in public and perform. Yeah. Were you still feeling this anxiety? Were you still waves of that?
It was a lot of the stuff that came on stage, and with all the movement and ferocity of performance, was because I could feel things coming on, and I was like, no, you're not going to get me now. I'm in the middle of a show. You're not going to get me now. Not going to get me now. So, yeah, and I sort of beat the hell out of myself, and it seemed to go away after a while.
I know you got busted for dope when you were pretty young, about 14,
yeah.
And studies show now a real causal link between cannabis, marijuana, and the sorts of episodes you're explaining. Looking back, do you think there's any connection?
Yeah, I remember when, having... Yeah, there possibly is. I mean, I actually don't smoke pot anymore, so...
The reason I ask is because you are trying to get a message through to teenagers, and having been there, I just wonder if, now you think about it, if you see any connection.
Yeah, I'm living proof of it. This happens, and sometimes it just needs a little... I know what's happening. You're not alone in that horrible, panicky feeling if you... anxiety begat anxiety, and sometimes you just need someone to let you know that you actually are going to get over this if maybe if you take it a little easy.
The now well-publicised incident at Falls in 2004, where you were really drunk on stage. Come on. You hate talking about this, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. But
guy in a rock band gets drunk. Wow.
Yeah, but it was more than that for you, because you were really drunk, and you threw a haymaker at Davey, and you couldn't finish the set and so on. What I'm interested in is actually the message you sent afterwards. You posted on the website afterwards. Where you basically apologised, and you talked about the struggle you've had all your life to sort of...
No, that was just... I was just shocked at the attention it got. I was shocked at the way I became. I mean, I'm shocked any time I become violent on stage, and particularly doing anything to Davey. I mean, I love the kid. What had happened is the night before that we played such a good show, and Davey and I are sharing a hotel room again, and when you have a great show, you just don't ever want it to stop. And so we didn't. And the next day, the equation came in. Well, if we do a bit of that and a little bit of that, and don't do this on the plane, but do that when we land, and if I have a scallop pie at 4, and only... And by the time I got on, it was, hands were like balloons and the whole thing, and I just got it wrong. And it's just being a dick, and, hopefully it won't happen again. I doubt that it ever will, because I love playing good shows, and when you play a good show, there's nothing better in the world than playing a bad show. There's not a lot worse.
You kind of play the low card of, look, we're happy having this up and down career, but you're obviously a lot stronger than you let on, because in your industry a lot of people have succumbed to the darkness of it and to the abuse of it.
Yeah, I think when you see people actually physically very unwell, not through something like getting hourly into drugs or just drinking a bottle to get up, people get your cancers and your thing, and then you just feel like, so what the hell am I doing? I've got this opportunity, this wonderful opportunity to play music for a living. What a lark. And I'm going to muck that up by necking a bottle of vodka before I wake up and a couple of grams before lunch, and you just feel very extraordinarily selfish, So that's not a struggle. It's just stopping yourself from, frankly, just being a dick.
You're going to play a song shortly, Dilettantes, which
it's
is...
amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that is a treat for us then. We look forward to hearing Dilettantes. Tim Rogers, as always, a pleasure.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you.
You should have met the guy. Been saying it so often. It's like there's a swinging party and I'm the only one not invited. Yeah, where those dilettantes wave their wits like wands, curse the living fun of snatching days like prizes. There's a tall poised at the waterfront with gas bottle heaters and bins filled with ice. I'm overdressed to miss the point. But when I wake up from a tropical slumber, so far away from even just making the numbers, I could never see you in the light. What chance have I got finding you in shadows? You left me off the list, hey, another night. I'll meet you someday out there in the shadows. You would love the guy. Eyes like windows into a 37-letter Dr. Seuss invention. Propellers fanning the motors, pink smoke rising and lower, stairwells duck and weave, surviving just on tension. Existing just for what you want can leave you missing the calamities you need. You gave far more than you could grab, but you can't take it with you, the wisdom, the candor. Just give me the white lies, the horse shit, the slander. I could never see you in the light. What chance have I got finding you in shadows? You left me off the list, hey, it's alright. I'll meet you someday out there in the shadows. Go!
There's good news from the Paralympic Games, with the Australian men's wheelchair basketball team playing for the gold medal. And you can see the deciding match live from 9:30 tomorrow night on ABC2 and ABC HD.